My name is Karunakar Marasakatla. I'm going to talk about Manvantara cycles and their relationship to the supercontinent cycles in this talk. This is an expanded version of the talk I gave earlier in Sangam talks um, on April 19th, 2020. So today I'm recording at August 1st, 2020. Before going into the talk, a little bit about me. Right now, currently I'm living in California. I did my BE in Computer Science and Engineering from Usmania University. Research works, even though I work in IT, I have passion for research in science and basic science, exploring the fundamental concepts and in theoretical way. So as part of my own initiative, I did a couple of projects. This work that is being presented in this talk is about the supercontinental global deluge and then their relationship to the ancient stories of global deluge, Manvantara cycles, and other things. This I did between 2000 and 2002. I also wrote a book called Gravity from a New Angle. That is a description of gravity in a all new different perspective, other than what is there in general relativity or Newtonian gravity. As part of that book, the small section of that book, why we see a deficit in mass in nucleus when we combine the protons and neutrons, the total mass always will be less than the total number of mass of combined mass of the protons and neutrons. Why we see the deficit inside the nucleus? So that I wrote an article and published in Pre-Spacetime Journal, Volume 1 and Issue 9. That was in 2020. And then when we immerse our hands in water, play with in water for a long time, we see wrinkles in our hands. Why we have wrinkles forms on the hand? I co-wrote this article and published in peer-reviewed preprints in 2013. This was basically a mystery, like unsolved problems in medicine for over a century. And as a fun project, I worked with my daughter. And then we both published that work in that peer-reviewed preprints. And that's about me. And then going into the talk, I divided the talk into a couple of sections: introduction, theory, supercontinental global deluge. So what is the theory and what is the supporting evidence, and where I published it, and all those details I'll cover in that. And then later developments in earth sciences. What are the, after I published my theory, what are the latest theory research that supports my um, theory, and then what we can do further in this area, and then I'll summarize the talks and we see what next we can do after this theory. And then looking at going into the introduction, we have in ancient Indian texts, there is very elaborate description of the time. Time goes back to like trillions of billions and trillions of years. But when you look at the basic construct of the time, that is a day of Brahma. So that's we take into the consideration and then see how it's divided into different parts. So the daytime of the Brahma, one day is day and night, and then daytime of the Brahma is creation, that is the Srishti, or the night time of Brahma, that is a dissolution or pralaya, equal to 1 kalpa. So kalpa is 14 manvantara cycles and then 15 sandhikalas. So each day or night is kalpa. So the day is basically 2 kalpa period, 2 kalpas, like a 1 day kalpa and then 1 night kalpa combined with 1 day. So kalpa is any 14 manvantara cycles plus 15 sandhikalas. So one at the beginning of kalpa and rest at the end of each manvantara cycle. So in the beginning there is 1 sandhikala and then 14 sandhikalas at the end of each 14 manvantara cycles. And manvantara cycle consists of 71 mahayugas. So 71 mahayugas equals to, each mahayuga is like 4,320,000 years. That comes to 306 million years. Mahayuga is basically, it consists of four parts. One is Krita, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. Each one is given the number of years there, and then the total is 4,320,000 years. So far we have 6 manvantara cycles have been elapsed, and the present is the 7th cycle. That's how the ancient text described. At the end of each cycle, there will be a global deluge equal to a period of Krita Yuga, which is described as Sandhikala. So when you look at the geological periods or history, also marked by ice ages, flooding, and volcanism, etc. So when we look at the geological history, there is a lot of events recorded in the history. That's the picture I took when I went to Grand Canyon last time. And then we see the layers, and each layer could be depiction of historical depiction of either volcanism or flooding or ice ages. So when there is a global deluge as described in our ancient texts, that when there is a global deluge, lot of sediments gets eroded, lot of erosion in elevated areas, and then the sediments gets carried away to the downstream and it gets deposited somewhere. We should see a thick layers of deposit of sedimentary rocks somewhere in the history where this global deluge happened. So that should be there. We try to find out where that latest global deluge described in the ancient texts recorded in the Earth history. Looking into the actual timeline, according to the on the top we have Earth history according to ancient Indian text, and then at the bottom Earth history according to the geological time scale. Each periods are given in millions of years ago, MA. So when you look at the left side, so it's a 0 million years ago, means like it's a present age. So we have on the top, present age is 0 million years, and we are in Kali Yuga in 28th Mahayuga. Within the 7th Manvantara of that 71 Mahayugas, we so far 27 have been elapsed, and we are in the 728th Mahayuga and Kali Yuga period. Within that, we have the 4th part of that Mahayuga. And then, when you look at the beginning of the 7th Manvantara, it is where the global deluge was described having happened during the Vaivasata Manu period. That happened approximately 122 million years ago. And then when you look at the 6th Manvantara with the global deluge, that was approximately happened around 430 million years ago. So between these two, there is, as I told you, 71 Mahayugas plus 1 Krita Yuga comes to 308 million years. When you look at on the bottom side, when you look at the geological timescales. These are the 0 to 2.6 million years ago. It's a quaternary, and then tertiary and Cretaceous. These are the well documented periods in the geological history. When you look at the beginning of 6th to 7th Manvantara with the global deluge, it it falls within the Cretaceous period. So there is no particular demarcation. There is no geological um, time that begins where the seventh Manvantara is supposed to have started. So when you look at the same thing happens when you look at the uh, beginning of the sixth Manvantara, that is also falling within the Silurian period between 409 and 444 million years ago. So where is the sedimentary layers recorded within the Earth history if they are not following whatever the ancient texts describe the Manvantara cycles and then global deluge is not coinciding with the Earth history, where are they? So that's what we're going to explore in the rest of the slides. And then, so I'll tell before going to the theory. I'll tell you how even though I work in IT, I said I have passion for research in science. So how I started this research of exploring the supercontinental global deluge. So in year 2000, I happened to pick up the latest issue of the Scientific American. That was the January 2000 issue. And then there I read the article Snowball Earth. And it basically said that Earth covered in thick ice sheets from poles to the equator. And then that coincided with the supercontinental period. That basically intrigued me. How on the Earth is covering mm, entire Earth is covering in ice sheets, and then it quickly exited from that scenario. How I got curious about that concept, and I wanted to read more, and then I started reading more, and then started doing the research. Um, because before I tell you, like, that is why that got interested into uh, I got interested in that subject. I read a lot of books in earth sciences when I was working in as a scientist. They call scientist, even though you are an engineer working in the institute. All the CSIR labs in India, where National Geophysical Research Institute is one of the institute where I worked as a engineer, computer engineer. But there, the library, lot of books on earth sciences, and out of all that, the plate tectonics is the one um, grabbed my interest. So I studied a lot about plate tectonics while I was there. So I have all the basics. I need to explore this theory, and then I picked it up and then read, and then what I remember from the article is, so they basically said when supercontinent breaks up, all the um, global warming and all the causes a lot of gases that causes the cooling and then creates the snowball earth. So that was not convincing to me. I thought like there should be something else, and then I started researching the thing. And then, so as part of that, so I came up with these are my understanding and then my discoveries. So this is in this picture we see plate tectonics is Earth is divided into plates, different plates. One move into the other, and then some places plates move apart, and then totally it's a dynamic environment. So we can see the red is one plate, and the green is another plate, and blue is another plate, and then down is the mantle. On top of that, they are all moving. So On the red and green plates are spreading apart, and then green plate is going under the blue plate, and then that's how we have folding mountains. So how can we describe the plate tectonics? Plate tectonics is a process of dissipation of heat inside the earth. It's not like they're just plates are not just like that, they're moving. So it's basically whenever it started, from that time onwards earth started cooling. Because earth is, there's heat inside the earth, and then that cooling process is what the plate tectonics is. And then when plates move apart, we have a new crust gets created. This is normally at the ocean. When the plates move apart, there is one in Iceland on the continent as well. But basically, this is where when plates move apart, new magma comes to the place space, and then it creates the new plates. Basically, this plates gets extended from this side, and this plate gets extended from this side as it moves from away from this point. And then at the subduction, where the plate is gets recycled back into the mantle. So that's how the old crust gets subducted, and the new crust gets created at the ridges. And then what happens when supercontinent formation? So this is where the subduction process, two continents collide with each other. When at they, this subduction process is not an infinite process. It will, at some point it will stop subducting the crust. So at that point, when the subduction stops, the mountain building also stops. Mountains, whatever the height it reaches, they stop growing. And then at the same time, because the plate is not moving here, and then here it gets sealed up. The new magma comes up here and then seals the plates, and then the subduction ceases to exist, as well as no new oceanic crust gets created. And then when this is one plate, when all the plates come to, all the continents comes together to form a supercontinent, and then all the ridges gets closed, when then there's no new ocean crust gets created. So everything is one single plate. So that is what I coin as tectonic pause. There's a pause in tectonic activity. So that's how when the supercontinent forms, tectonic pause occurs. So plate tectonics is, until the time when I worked on year 2000, the understanding of the plate tectonics was that it is a continuous process. Whenever it started, even though Earth formed at 4400 million years ago, whenever it started, the plate tectonics, it was a continuous process going on from that point until now. So what I came up with is, it's not a continuous process. There is a break in the uh, tectonic plate tectonics every time there is a supercontinent forms. So when supercontinent forms, all the plates fuse together, and then as forms as a new single plate, and then when it breaks up, then the new plates form and then keep moving apart. So what happens when the tectonic pause occurs? So because the ridges are closed, no new oceanic crust is gets created. So less heat comes from inside the earth. So the cooling of the earth will be, the rate of cooling will be decreased. So normally glaciers, they advance and retreat every 100,000 years or so. So when less heat is coming from inside the earth, so bit by bit, each cycle of glaciations will advance towards the equator. At some point, albedo effect will kick in, and then runaway glaciation will continue, and then captures entire Earth in the thick ice sheets. So that's what the snowball Earth event happens. That's how the runaway glaciation between multiple cycles when the tectonic pause is progressing. And then when supercontinental breaks up, when the new plates form, that's when the volcanic activity, volcanism, and global warming, and all these things will basically melt the ice sheets, rapid melting of ice sheets, and creates a global flood scenario. So when all these events, global warming, global flood, and then all these events will cause a mass extinction at the supercontinental breakup period. And as part of an extension, after formulating that theory, and I've created an extension to the theory where extended the theory. These two articles helped me to in understanding the plate tectonics even further, and then extend my theory. The first is basically saying that there is an indication to the start of plate tectonics around 2800 million years ago. So that's when, even though Earth formed in 4400 million years ago, there was not much paleomagnetic data, but only the paleomagnetic data happens to be more around only from that point onwards. Before that, very negligible amount of magnetic data recorded in the rocks. And then the second article is it's basically says formation and interchange of megablobs and megatrovs in the mantle to drive the plate tectonics. So what it says is there are two megablobs on the one side and megatrovs on the other side. So one of the blob is under one of the supercontinent, and then it breaks up, continents disperse toward the troves, and then they interchange. Trove becomes blob, and blobs becomes troves, and then push back the continents back to the form the supercontinents. So that's how this theory presented, and then I took it as a basis and then extended the theory. So what is the origination of the plate tectonics? So Earth is divided into core, mantle, and crust. This is how it was started 4400 million years ago. So at some point, the inner core started to form. The inner core didn't start right immediately when Earth formed around 4400 million years ago. So inner core is started around only 2800 million years ago. So that's what I call the start of the plate tectonics, because the Earth started to cool as part of the plate tectonics. So when the inner mantle cools, the solidification of the nucleation of the inner core happens. Started with the nucleation of the inner core. So when you cool the interior, so that extends. The mantle cools, and then outer core cools, and then so it goes when the core cools down, and then it gets solidified inside the at the center of the Earth. So that inner core was a point around 2800 million years ago when the start of the plate tectonics. As it progressed, the Earth started cooling, the inner core started to grow. So the growth of the inner core started only around 2800 million years ago. And plate tectonics is the process of cooling the interior of the Earth. That's what it is. So as it started cooling, it's moving the plates around, and new crust gets created, and then because that brings the heat from inside to the outside the Earth, and then it cools down. As it cools down, it's extracting the heat from the inside the Earth, and then that is basically coming from the solidification of the inner core. So that is the start of the plate tectonics, and then what is the cause of the plate tectonics? The cause is as I explained in earlier. So in that article, mega blobs and troves. and you can look at the so that is the outer layer. This is the crust, and then yellow is the mantle, outer core, inner core, and these are the blobs. These two mega blobs, and then these are megatrovs. Blue is the megatrove and the brown is the blob. And basically blob is a bulge on the surface of the earth. It's supposed to be bit more on this side and bit less on this side. So when mm, when so content when the blobs, this is where the supercontinent forms in one of the under on top of one of the mega blobs. And then when mega blobs form and breaks the supercontinent, so continents gets dispersed towards the troves, either this way, some this way, and some this way. And then for this happens until 200 million years, and then they get interchanges. So blobs becomes troves and troves become blobs. They interchange. So these are the blobs now. Blobs is mega plumes, super volcanoes, or something like you can call it. That's what it is. And then when they this interchange, they push back the continents back to form a supercontinent. So that's what it is. So mega blobs, when one instance of mega blobs breaks the supercontinent and disperses the continents, and then another instance of mega blobs, the interchanged ones, and they push back the continents and then form another supercontinent. So why that is almost like earth is breathing like it's mega blobs forming and then interchanging with the troves and then alternating mega blobs. It's not just like Earth just doesn't choose to have a mega blobs. There has to be some cause behind it. So in my theory, what I proposed is, so while its solar system is revolving around the galactic center, that's what described as Vishnu Nabi in ancient Indian texts. So what happens is, um, one revolution, the mega blobs push the continents to the other side towards the troves. In another revolution, the mega blobs will interchange and push back the continents back to form a supercontinents. So we have galactic revolution is like 200 million years. So two of those cycles will be 400 million years, and we have a supercontinent cycle around 400 million years. So two collect revolutions, 200 million years for 200 million years, equal to one supercontinent cycle is 425 million years. So that's how I proposed my theory. So if supercontinent cycle is 425 million years, when it started around 2800 million years ago, and how many supercontinents formed? Supercontinents, so equal to 400 cycle is equal to 425 million years. So breakup of first supercontinent and start of plate tectonics around 2800 million years ago. In that case, there were 6 complete cycles from 2800 million years ago to 250 million years ago. So those are 2800 million years ago. That's the first supercontinental breakup. And 2375 second, third is 1950, fourth is 1525, fifth is 1100, sixth is 675 million years ago, and then the latest, seventh supercontinent broke apart around 250 million years ago. So supercontinent Rodinia broke apart around 675 million years ago. The sixth one is the Rodinia supercontinent that broke apart around 675 million years ago and caused a snowball scenario and then mass extinction. So latest supercontinent Pangaea broke apart around 250 million years ago around the Permian and Triassic boundary, and that caused a massive mass extinction. That mass extinction is described in the geological history as mother of all mass extinctions, because 90% of the species around that time were disappeared. When we look at this is the history of the plate tectonics and the supercontinent cycles and Earth history, and then let's summarize what we have uh, with the supercontinent cycles. So 6 completed cycles, and the current one is in the 7th cycle, and we are in the middle of the 7th cycle. Snowball Earth event lasted for 5 to 10 million years. Snowball Earth is basically snowball Earth happening, and then supercontinental breakup, and then rapid melting of the ice sheets, and then exiting out of the snowball Earth scenario. The entire process could have happened between 500 and 10 million years ago. And then 90% of the species were extinct during the breakup of Pangea, 7th supercontinent, around 250 million years ago. So if that is what happened, so this is going to happen in each breakup of the supercontinental period. Largest known cycle in geological time scale with a duration of 425 million years. So there is no bigger cycle on the Earth level. So supercontinent cycle is the largest known cycle. Rest are like glaciations and all other cycles, but that is the biggest cycle in supercontinent level, Earth history. So how many supercontinents going to form? So there might be like there are going to be 7 more supercontinent cycles before Sun explodes in supernova in 3 billion years. Sun is not going to last forever. There is a lifetime for the Sun. So there is what current estimates is like it's about 3 billion years from now. It's going to explode in a supernova. So when you look at the 3 billion years period and you take the 425 million years for each cycle, and right now we are in the middle of this cycle. When you look at all this, there is going to be 7 more supercontinent cycles going to happen, and true global flood when all continents were together. So global flood means like entire world has to um, submerge in water. So when the continents are separated, global flood becoming a global flood is entire oceans are turning upside down. So when all continents comes together and they're all encapped in ice sheets, and then when ice sheets melts, it's easy to say that like all the continents were flooded. So that is a true global flood. With these points from the supercontinent cycle, let's look at the what is there in the Manvantara cycles. So 6 completed cycles, and the current one is the 7th cycle. We are in the middle of the 7th cycle. We are in the 7th Manvantara, that is 28th Mahayuga of 7th Manvantara, and then a global flood equal to Kruta Yuga. So Kruta Yuga, between each Manvantara, there is a global flood that happens 1.73 million years. So basically, that is only the flood period, not the ice snowball at forming and all these things. So when you look at all the from the research, we have snowball Earth formation, and then supercontinental breakup, rapid melting of ice sheets, and global flood that lasted 5 to 10 million years. And then when the ancient text described that there is a global flood at the beginning of each Manvantara, that is equals to almost 2 million years. So we have almost close to the what data suggests. And then the species that were got onto the ship with Vaivasa Manu survived. Rest all perished around 120 million years ago. So this is how it's described. Each Manvantara, Manu saves the species, each pair of species he saves, loads them into a ship, and then they stay afloat, stay in that ship until the flood recedes. So that's what they said. So it's basically the concept of like taking each pair of species into the ship and then making them survive for 1.73 million years is not possible. So what the ancient texts were describing is there is lot of there is going to be lot of loss of life around that beginning of the Manvantara. So the global deluge and global warming, all those events will make lot of species won't survive that period. Only the surviving species will start the new supercontinental period and the new Manvantara, and then with the rapid growth of evolution between those species. So Manvantara cycle is largest cycle described to happen on the surface of the earth with a duration of 307 million years. So look at the time scale of the Manvantara, 307 million years, and then look at the supercontinent cycle, it's 425 million years. Very close to the what supercontinent cycle is describes. Apart from the current Manu, 7 more Manus to come in the future. That's what the ancient text described. So ship ventured into open ocean to escape from flooding on the land. So it's not basically a local flooding they described in the ancient text. So basically all the species got into the ship, they ventured into the open ocean and stayed there until flood receded on the land. So that means they were describing a global flood event. Um, so basically, so looking at that, when you look at what are the differences between Manvantara cycles and supercontinent cycles, only the difference is in the duration of the cycles. That one is 425 million years, other is 307 million years. So Manvantara cycle calculated with the revolutions of the earth around the sun. So from the ancient texts, they are calculating the revolutions of the earth around the sun. That's how they calculated the number of years. And then that's how they came about 307 million years. So geological timescales are calculated based on the half-life period of radioactive elements. And so one is basically exactly counting the number of revolutions, and the other is you are based on the rate of decay of radioactive elements, and there is a possibility that these two could be there could be a difference how we are calculating the time using these two methods. I hope that there is in the future there's a possibility that like if really there is a difference, and then there's a possibility that we might be able to reconcile these two cycles in the future. Difference is very small when compared to the what are the similarities we have with the supercontinent cycles. So that based on this overwhelming um, similarities between supercontinent cycles and Manvantara cycles, I concluded in my research that Manvantara cycles are in fact supercontinent cycles. Now we know that supercontinent cycles are Manvantara cycles. Let's go back to revisit the time scale according to the ancient texts, and then according to the geological time scales. Um, so when you say day of Brahma, beginning of the first supercontinent to end of the 14th supercontinent, that's what the day of the Brahma is. Night of the Brahma is from end of the 14th supercontinent to beginning of the first supercontinent after the formation of next planetary system following the supernova. So when sun explodes in a supernova, all the planets gets vaporized, and then after some time the new planets form. So with that, new on the new planets, and when another Earth forms, on that again, when the first supercontinent star breaks up and then starts the plate tectonics. So that is the period from that time to that time, 14, end of the 14th supercontinent to the start of the first supercontinent, and the next step is the night of the Brahma. So one day of the Brahma is basically the lifespan of our sun. So sun basically switches on, and then that means like the productive period of the sun is what the um, is what the day of the Brahma, and then when sun explodes in supernova, goes back into um, collapses back into a dwarf star. That is what the night of the Brahma is. So that's what ancient texts describe when they say day of the Brahma is they're actually talking about the sun and then the life of the sun. So that's why most ancient texts, like ancient Indian texts, there's a lot of description about the sun as a god. So that is what the life supporter on this earth is, the sun. That's why they praise sun so much in the ancient text. That is basically sun is the representation of the Brahma. So the present Kalpa they call is Svetavaraha Kalpa. It started around 2800 million years ago, and then with the breakup of the first supercontinent. When you look at the other events, how they how they can be compared between the ancient earth history from ancient text to the earth history in geological timescales. The Srishti, the day of Brahma, is what 6 billion years, and then it's 14 Manvantara cycles, 14 times 2, because each Manvantara is 2 galactic revolutions, so it's 28 galactic revolutions of the solar system. So on the top we have Earth history, um, according to ancient Indian calculation, and then beginning of first Manvantara is around 2800 million years ago, breakup of first supercontinent, and beginning of seventh Manvantara is PT Permian and Triassic boundary, breakup of Pangea 250 million years ago. The Kali Yuga in 28th Mahayuga is the present is 0 million years ago, and the beginning of 8th Manvantara is going to happen when the breakup of 8th supercontinent 250 about approximately around 250 million years from present. So right now we have all the continents separated, North America, South America, Africa, Eurasia, India, all are separated. When they all come back together to form another supercontinent in another 250 million years, that's when the beginning of 8th Manvantara. Um, when that breaks up again, that's when beginning of the 8th Manvantara starts. And then at the end of the 14th Manvantara, we have that's when the Pralaya begins. And that's what a supernova end of 14th Manvantara, 3000 million years from now. So basically, it's a entire span of 14 Manvantaras is 6 billion years time scale. 3 billion years almost fast, and that 3 billion years in the future. So we are right exactly, almost exactly in the middle. And then when you look at the Pralaya, the night of the Brahma, 6 billion years, 28 galactic revolution, same period as daytime. So I took it as a 6 billion years. So 6 billion years of the same time when you look at the galactic revolutions. So it's a 14 manvantaras and then 28 galactic revolutions. So at the beginning of Pralaya, so what happens is supernova, explosion of the sun, and then evaporation of all the planets. And then and the chaos continues. They were all into planets get shredded into planetesimals, and then around 4,000 million years from supernova, formation of new sun, and then in another 500 million years, the formation of a new planet. All the planetesimals comes together to form a new planet, and then and another so totally 6,000 million years from pralaya. So new earth, another new earth, new planets and new earth forms, and then the planets are ready to start plate tectonics again. So the first supercontinent, the breaks up, and the continents started moving uh, at that point. So that is the period. Entire period is 6,000 million years. Start of plate tectonics on new earth. So that is the night of the Brahma. So the description of these daytime kalpas, pralaya, everything is there in the many ancient Indian texts, but one of the main texts we can see extensive description of these Manvantaras um, is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. When you look at the Skanda 12 and chapter 14 in that text, it's the description exactly matches with the supernova. Sun becomes hotter, 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 and then all the water on the earth gets evaporated, and then no life form will survive during the pralaya. So that's how they describe the pralaya in that text. Um, Flood stories are everywhere in most of the ancient texts. Not only the Indian text, but is part of all the cultures. So one of the instances where ancient Hebrew texts described a concept called seven earths, and then seven earths is the same as Manvantara cycles. So the Noah saved the species in an ark from the great flood. That happened between the sixth earth and then seventh earth. Seven concentric earths, one above the other. That's how they described earths. Is the center one is the first earth, and there's ocean, next earth, ocean, next earth, like this. And then Noah basically crossed between the this is the sixth earth. At the end of the sixth earth, he gathered all the animals, loaded them into a ship, and then crossed this ocean, came into the seventh earth, the new earth. So that's how the ancient Hebrew text described the seven earth scenarios. So each separated by ocean. Noah crossed the ocean between sixth and seventh earths, and then Adam crossed the ocean between all the earths. So, and Adam, apart from Noah, Adam is being told to as the first human. So he basically lived in first earth, and then it was described that he crossed from first earth ocean to seventh earth, second earth, and then third, fourth, like this, and then it's basically there is a opinion that like Adam is basically Noah is basically crossing the same thing, um, capturing all the animals. They didn't mention Adam capturing animals and saving them between the earths, but it's similar to the same as Manu, um, saving the animals from each earth and taken to the each Manvantara from previous Manvantara, crossing the waiting for the flood to recede, and then going to the new Manvantara, and then life flourishes like that. So it's almost similar to the way the ancient Manvantara cycles described, and these are similar to the concept of supercontinent cycles. When you look at the description of the earth in these ancient Hebrew texts, the environment where they describe certain creatures flourished in this earth and then progressed. And the progression, when you look at that progression, it clearly coincides with the supercontinent cycles. So seventh earth described as the present earth. So the present earth is the seventh earth. There is similar description in Zoroastrian text as well. They call them as seven earths and Manvantara supercontinent cycles. They call them as seven Karshvars. So there are seven Karshvars, each separated by ocean. These were described as concentric circles, one above the other. The present Hanirata is the seventh and largest one, and this is the only Karshvar inhabited by humans. So these descriptions also very similar to Manvantara cycles. Then ultimately they are close to the supercontinent cycles. So when you combine all these concepts, when you look at what is Swayambhuva Manu, the first Manu, like self-born person. When you look at that, so that happened again around at the beginning of the Kalpa. So that is the breakup of the first supercontinent around 2800 million years ago, and that's same the start of the plate tectonics happened around 2800 million years ago, and that is the so we can't say that there's a human being lived around 2800 million years ago, just out of the first supercontinent. He was there, and then from him all the species came. So it could be any life form. So life probably exists before the time in the oceans, and then whatever the first species creature that moved from the ocean to the land, that could be the Swayambhuva Manu. That's how I interpret the ancient text. And then first earth and Adam. So that's what when you look at the um, when you look at the ancient Hebrew text, that's how we can compare first supercontinent, first Manvantara, first earth, and then Adam. That and then when you look at the Zoroastrian text, we can compare that to the first Karshvar, and then we can see this extensive description of the not only the present and the past Manvantaras. We can see the rest seven more Manvantara cycles that are coming up in the future, the description of them, as well as the future Kalpas also is present in the Vyasa Maharshi written Srimad Bhagavatam. So Vaivasvata Manu, the seventh Manu period is breakup of Pangea, beginning of Triassic period, basically the Permian and Triassic boundary. That's around 250 million years ago, mother of all mass extinctions. There's a lot of species died off during that period. So that was described as mother of all mass extinctions. So, and then that was the thing most of the ancient cultures describe as the global deluge. Even though ancient Indian texts describe as many global deluges, so the most of the cultures describe only the recent global deluge, and that happened with the Vaivasvata Manu period and during the breakup of Pangea. Noah saving the species is part of the Pangea event. And then from that ancient Hebrew text, we can compare that to the seventh earth. And then according to the ancient Zoroastrian texts, we can compare that to seventh Karshvar. So from what I have, as I told you, the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can find the future description of future Manus as well. So the next Manu that's coming up, his name is Savarni Manu, like eighth Manu. And then, so what happens is now all the continents we have, they come together to form another supercontinent in another 250 million years from present. And then another snowball earth happens, and that continent breaks up, and then again there's a mass extinction, and then continent starts to separate. When and then new Manvantara begins, new supercontinent cycle begins from that point onwards. So that is what ancient text described as eighth Manvantara. Next, global deluge and another mass extinction. So that's what eighth Manvantara is. And then Pralaya. Pralaya is, to summarize, the Pralaya as occurs at the end of the 40th Manvantara, about 3 billion years from present period, coincides with the explosion of sun in supernova. Life on Earth disappears. Planets themselves will shred into species. So that's what the Pralaya is. When you look at this is how I proposed my theory around 2000, between 2000 and 2002. That's the period I worked. As soon as the article came on the Snowball Earth, I started working, and then this is how I proposed my theory. I proposed my theory in 3 articles, and then published them on the GeoCities website. So that was the people used to go to GeoCities in those days because there are no other websites to publish the work. So I tried to publish my work, couldn't able to publish, but then I decided it's the best way to go is just post it on the internet. And then so I described my theory in 3 articles. The first is tectonic pause towards the unification of earth sciences. So this is where I explain how the supercontinent forms and how the tectonic pause occurs, and then how that will trigger the snowball earth event, and then breakup of that supercontinent creates the global flood, and compare the Manvantara cycles, 7 earths in that work. The second article is this is a cause, origin, and continuation of plate tectonics. I posted around 2002. The first one is in 11th March 2001. This is the second article, 18th August 2002. This is where I described the nucleation of the inner core, starting of that as the start of the plate tectonics on the earth, and that was the beginning of the plate tectonics. And then the cause of the plate tectonic itself could be the result of the revolution of the solar system around the galactic center. So that 2 galactic revolutions causes 1 supercontinent cycle. That's how I proposed uh, my theory in that second article, extended the theory basically. Third is the earth history from the ancient texts and its relevance to the science. So this I published on the 18th August 2002. This basically compares the Manvantara cycles with the 7 earths and then seven Karshvars. So this is kind of summary from the ancient texts. So that's how my whole of my theory I summarized in those 3 articles. So when the GeoCities closed, Yahoo bought the GeoCities, and then they shut down the GeoCities around 2008 or 2009. And that point, I created my own website and duplicated entire GeoCities website in this link. So my website also describes my other book, Gravity from a New Angle. I kind of documented, described that book, and then a part of that site, I posted my entire GeoCities work. And then these 3 articles I also wrote, uploaded to the Wixra preprint server. So those articles also available in those links. And this is the article, that GeoCities article, snapshot of that article in the web archive. When you look at the web archive and then see enter my theory, my link. So this is when they captured October 20, 2001, the first capture. They captured, I posted in 11th March 2001, and then this is the abstract of that theory. So this is the second article, cause, origin, and continuation of plate tectonics. And then I posted 18th August 2002. That is the abstract, and this is the Earth history from the ancient text and its relevance to the sciences. So 18th August 2002. And even though those are the three main articles, that's how I described my theory. But there was an earlier article I posted on August 1st, 2000. That was a very early edition, a version of my theory. Of course, it was not perfect. This is the version I submitted to some journals, and then they got because it was not perfect article, so it got rejected. And then I posted that version to see like what is how it evolved. So this is basically the earlier version of the first article. So I expanded this word and then posted that tectonic pause towards the unification of earth sciences. Um, so that's an extension of this article. And the reason why I chose today, the August 1st, 2020, to record my talk is just to celebrate my first um, first publication, and then letting the world know that like this is my research and this is what I did. This is how it's all started. So exactly 20 years today, 20 years ago from today, I posted this article, and then that was my first research, summarizing the research I did those years. And when I posted that time from the year, even the first article, the one I posted in 2000, I posted in news groups. Those news groups is called now the Google groups. Those days, news groups are people used to go post them new discoveries, or like if they have any questions, they go there and then discuss the things. So I found many different venues. I posted my theory and then discussed. This is one of the venue where Dr. Benny Jeffries, or I'm sorry, I might have pronounced the name incorrectly, but he used to maintain a distribution list. Like a lot of researchers used to send their press releases or their ideas to him. He used to compile them every day and send as an email to all the distributor lists. And then so that's name is like a Cambridge conference correspondence. So in that on 26th June 2001, my first article, I sent it to him and he posted in that on that day, in that distribution list. And then whatever that content is sent, you can see it in the web archive in that link. And then I also discussed this in the Yahoo Indology group. That group basically started around just the time around 2001 and 2002, around that time. So when that group in the initial stages itself, I posted my theory and then discussed the work. And then one of the member actually interacted with me, and then you can see the conversation we had on the topic. Uh, you in that group. And Yahoo actually closed this one also. So they closed they bought the GeoCities and closed it, and then they maintained this for a while, and then it's no longer there on the internet, but the group still exists. People could still send the messages, but they all go to the email. But website presence is basically they closed it. And then so they sent all the files to all the members. And then when you look at the files and explore the messages, you can go back to the date, and then you can see my messages during that period. And I also posted my theory in because it's a plate tectonic, supercontinents, it's all part of the geology. And then one of the prominent news groups, people go there to discuss all the geology based discoveries is sci.geo.geology. I posted my theory in there and then discuss. I got a lot of initially members were totally against my concept, but lately they kind of agreed in some way, and then later on supported. But and also basically learned a lot from my initial theory when in the 2000 that time also I posted it. So I learned a lot from this group and then members. Um, I think one of the members very critical was Stuart, and he kind of very the postings from them, and then I learned a lot. I found what the lacking in my first article, and then refined it, and then posted the advanced updated version of that article. That's what the first article of those three articles, and I learned a lot from this group, and and then this is I posted this in the talk all origins also news group, and this is the biggest group, and a lot of people this lot of concept about the origin of the universe or origin of life or anything everything that's related to the beginning starting of the earth or anything like that. So there I posted my work with a thread like beginning of time according to the ancient text. So that's what beginning of time, the start of the Kalpa. That's when the time started, counting of time started according to the ancient text. So I posted my work, and the one of the member commented like that, like he said like I'm glad someone finally explained this. It's been a real dome scratcher for a long time. when when I looked at that comment, yeah, at least I could able to convince some people. Some people agreed with me even around that time, 20 years ago. Some people agreed, some people disagreed. But that comment was imprinted in my mind because that actually captures the essence of my work, and that's why I'm putting as a screenshot in this presentation. And then when you look at the later developments, there's an article came in 2008 in Science magazine that's called Intermittent Plate Tectonics. That basically says that plate tectonics is not a continuous process. It stops, all the plates merge together to form a single plate, and then again they breaks up and then starts the plate tectonics again. So they say intermittent plate tectonics. That's what I described long ago and named it as tectonic pause. Where there's a pause in tectonic activity and the new plate forms and then starts again. So that basically proves my tectonic pause concept. And then there are two articles. Um, they basically say that there's a significant event around 2800 million years ago. So that I say is the first breakup of the first supercontinental breakup and start of the plate tectonics. And then the first article in the previous slide, it says basically says that like this all the ocean, it's all earth is covered in all whole water. Earth is covered in water. There is no continent, not many, no continents at all, basically. And so it says the physics world, phys.org ran a news story on that based on that article. They wrote it as like early Earth may have been a water world. Basically, it says in the first paragraph, it says like the study which appears in March 2nd in Nature Geoscience takes advantage of a quirk of hydrothermal chemistry to suggest that the surface of the Earth was likely covered by a global ocean 3.2 billion years ago. It may even have looked a bit like the post-apocalyptic and land-free future imagined in Kevin Costner's infamous film Waterworld. So it's basically describes that like there's oceans and Earth is covered completely ocean and between before 3.2 billion years ago, and then only between 27 to around that between that period the continents emerged, and then um, landmass only appeared after that period. So that basically proves that there's a significant event happened around 2800 million years ago. So that could be the emergence of continents or the start of the plate tectonics, could be the same thing. So it could be there was a one single landmass might have submerged, and then it just broke up, and then continents made visible, and then started plate tectonics. And the ancient Indian texts, like interestingly, the ancient Indian text described this event and the start of in the young earth, when the earth was young. The Varaha, the boar, um, saved the earth. It was all submerged in water, and then Varaha, the Mahavishnu, first avatar as Varaha, he came, Varaha Avatara, they call. So he came and lifted the earth with its tusks, and then lifted the earth from the water, and then saved the earth. So from that point onwards is the what like Svetavaraha Kalpa. As I start look at the description, it's just unbelievable. So how they described how the events from that point in the past, they clearly explained what happened in the earth history. So yeah, that's what that's why in this entire the 14th Manvantara period is named as Svetavaraha Kalpa, based on the Varaha Avatara of the Sri Mahavishnu lifting the earth from the waters. And then another article, it basically says there are six supercontinent cycles might have formed. It might not describe the same duration, but nevertheless, it describes there's a possibility for the six supercontinents in the past. So this is all I described and posted my theory, discussed in the openly on the internet, and then I thought I'm done with that work, and because there's nothing more to add to it, because I just moved on that for work. I kept it aside, and then I wrote a book called Gravity from a New Angle, and worked on other projects, published so many other articles. And then why I am coming back to this issue now, because recently, last February 2020, I started basically it started in the 2019. That's when I started Paramahansa Yogananda basic lessons, and then within one of those lessons, lesson number 9, God and the Universe, he states that each day of creation after the first day is actually a cycle comprising perhaps millions of years. That struck me, and what Yogananda said was each day of creation is millions of years, perhaps millions of years. So in that case, if each day is millions of years, the according to the Genesis, that God created the earth in 6 days, and then he rested on the seventh day. So basically, the 6 past days are basically 6 Manvantara cycles, 6 Earths, and then 6 Karshvars, and then 6 supercontinent cycles. And the seventh day he rested means like the same thing that's going on. Seventh supercontinent that's going on, and then seventh Manvantara cycles that's going on in the present age. So that is what we can even compare the concept of 6 days and seventh day rest of creation to my theory, basically with the supercontinents. When you go back and read this days concept, how they created, first day created something, second day created something. So this is all coincides with how the life evolved during the 6 supercontinent cycles and then the current seventh cycle. So when I read that, then I realized it's all matching with my theory. And then I thought, like, yeah, this I need to go back to this my discuss the earlier work, and then do publicize it more so that more people know about this work. And because I just writing and leaving it there, people, nobody recognizes there is something, even though there's been there for 20 years. um, Nobody talked about it. I sent to many newspapers and journalists. Nobody talked about it. So then those days were like, not many people believe, who, if anybody outsider than academic world did anything, nobody believes it. So these days are different. So you can publicize any work, and so that's why I thought, like, maybe I need to post this, revisit this in a different new in a platform, and then that's how the Sangam talk came to be. And then, so because I forgot this work, and then Paramahansa Yogananda work made me come back to revisit the work, and then that's the reason I'm dedicating this work to my guru, Paramahamsa Yogananda. And then, because he made me look back and then go to that, visit that work, and then present it again. So otherwise I would have let it go like that. So that's why I'm dedicating my work to Paramahamsa Yogananda. And again, one thing was not clear from that is, from this whole thing, is why and how, why is curiosity, human curiosity needs to explore things, but how the ancient rishis are able to accomplish this task of describing the entire history, past and then future history of the solar system, is mind blowing. So how did they do it? At that time, in year 2000, 2002, I had no clue of how they did it. Um, so in one of the messages in Science Geology on April 12th, 2001, I posted, we can't even explain using the present concepts in science about how they arrived at that conclusion. So, but after going through the basic lessons in 2019, and then starting the actual Kriya lessons in starting from February 2020, um, and I read many other works of Yogananda, as well, from that Kriya lessons, and then reading a lot of his books. Now I realize that, like, rishis come to know about the inner workings of the universe, um, by doing the tapas. That's how the deep meditation, that's how they do it. And then they came to know about the inner workings of the universe. So this is the reason for me to come back and then give the Sangam talk. So defining such a large time scale that is almost close to the supercontinent cycle, and describing it as the revolution around Vishnu Nabi, galactic center, and attributing the duration of creation to the lifespan of Sun is astonishing. So not only the Manvantara cycles and describing them as close to the supercontinent cycles, there's a reference to Vishnu galactic revolutions of the solar system. So that is causing the basically cause of the Manvantara cycles. And these are the discoveries I came to know after presenting my theory. Then that's why I'm coming back and revisiting the work. So there is another supercontinent, another theory for this Mahayuga. Uh, my guru, Paramahamsa Yogananda, and then his guru, Swami Yukteswar, wrote a book called Holy Science. In that, he says that Mahayuga consists of 12,000 years instead of 4,320,000 years. So, according to this theory, one kalpa is when you take kalpa as 1,000 Mahayugas, 1,000 Maha is 14 Manvantaras with 71 Mahayuga in each, and then an additional 15 Krita Yugas, all comes to the a period of 1,000 Mahayugas is equal to 12 million years. 12 million years. So when you look at it means like when you look at the kalpa as a 12 million years, pralaya is also 12 million years. So what are pralaya, srishti 12 million, pralaya 12 million, srishti 12, pralaya 12. This cycle repeats as the day of Brahma, day and night of Brahma. They keep on repeating. So when you look at the geological data, it doesn't support the extermination of life on Earth every 12 million year cycle. So pralaya is like it evaporates all the water on the surface of the Earth, and then not only and also destroys all the life on the Earth, and then again the life starts in the next kalpa, next daytime, and then at the end of the pralaya, at the beginning of the pralaya, again life gets destroyed, and then the chaos for equal amount of time. When you look at the geological data, we don't have life disappearing every 12 million years. So based on that, so I'm I'm concluded that this theory, what Swami Yukteswar wrote in the Holy Science, might not be correct thing. Because I'm not sure why Swami Yukteswar wrote like this, but one thing from that book, it's evident that all these theory concepts he wrote in the preface, not as part of the main book. It's all in the preface or in the introduction part of the book, but in the entire book, there's no reference to these yugas or how you calculate, why he chose to calculate Mahayuga as 12,000 years. So based on that, maybe we could basically, because it's part of the preface, we could say that like maybe it's not main understanding of Swami Yukteswar. So yeah, all the yuga description is in the part of the preface of the book, and then so that's where I'm not sure which ancient text wrote about revolutions of solar system around Vishnu Nabi. Vishnu Nabi is considered as galactic center, but his holy science in this book, that is one of the prominent thing was mentioned in that book. It says the solar system itself revolves around the galactic cycle, galactic center, and that forms a cycle. So my theory basically says that is the thing that is triggering the mega blobs, and then causing the supercontinent cycle. In every two galactic revolutions causes one single supercontinent cycle. So what we can do in the future? So the only thing we can see the difference between the supercontinent cycle and Manvantara cycle is the duration between these the two cycles. So one is 307, another is 425 million years. So there should be further research to see why there is a gap, and then how to reconcile these two cycles. And another thing is, there is so much of elaborate description of Manvantara cycles, not only in the past and then future as well. So to see, so is this the one, the origin of all the flood stories described in the ancient worlds? So to summarize my talk, um, so basically, the 2800 million years ago, that is very significant event happened in Earth history. That is the start of the plate tectonics, breakup of the first supercontinent, start of the Varaha Kalpa, start of the first Manvantara. That's where the Varaha Avatara lifted the earth from the waters, and then saved the earth from water. And then from that point onwards, we have 6 complete cycles and completed, and then current is the 7th cycle. So each cycle ends with an ice age, and then global deluge. Um, when the supercontinent breaks up, a rapid melting of the ice sheets creates a global deluge. All the ancient flood stories have scientific basis in supercontinent cycles. So that's what my research found. So we compared Manvantara cycles, 7 years, 7 Karshvars, 7, even the 7-day concept with the supercontinent cycles. And in the future, 7 more supercontinent cycles will happen before Sun explodes in supernova. So before the supernova, we have exactly 7 supercontinents. There's a possibility to form 7 supercontinents in the future. And then, so basically, one day of the Brahma is the birth and death of the sun. So that's what. So sun borns, life flourishes on the planets, sun dies off in supernova, and everything goes back into chaos, and then again sun collapses and then forms again, and then um, another new planetary system starts with the supercontinents. That's again another day of the Brahma starts. So one day of the Brahma is the basically birth and death of the sun. And plate tectonics itself could be the result of revolutions of the sun around the galactic center, Vishnu Nabi. That's how the continents gets dispersed and then assembled back to supercontinent. That basically summarizes my work. So if that is the work, what we can do going into the future. So when you look at it's all not nonsense. It's they basically we don't have the concepts in science to understand all this um, knowledge that is preserved in these ancient Indian texts. Look at in the case of plate tectonics, it just started only got prominence in the 70s and 80s. All this plate tectonic concept started to evolve around this period, and still it's developing. This is one of the new branch of the science, and when you before that anybody looked into this text and then see all these elaborate descriptions, they think it's all what these people are talking about, because science itself don't have basis to understand all these ancient concepts. So that's why, because now we know that these ancient Manvantara cycles are actually supercontinent cycles. What else is hiding within those ancient texts that needs to be discovered more? So from my research, I look at the ancient texts as their treasure trove of geological and astronomical information. We should make them part of the science. Take all the core concepts of science within those ancient texts and make them, combine them with the science, and should be, students should be able to see what modern science is saying, what ancient texts are saying, and then they should be able to appreciate what is there, what's been told already about the world and what we are discovering as part of the science. And then they should appreciate both the things, balance, then balance both of things, and then understand it, um, broaden their understanding of the universe. And so yeah, that's what I say. Like science should be studied in conjunction with the ancient texts. So we need to. There's a need to merge these two things, science as well as the ancient concepts, and then study them together. That's I hope we'll see that kind of environment in the future. It should happen actually. And that's my presentation, and I am available on the Twitter, and that's my email, my homepage, and within that homepage describes my book, but there's a link in there to that takes to the old GeoCities website, where I preserved my entire GeoCities site as I posted when I last published it on the in 2002. And then that is the YouTube. This is where you find this video channel. And then I write brief blog kind of thing in the Medium. That's the link. And the PJ article I mentioned, you can find it at that link. And then all my physics related and all other articles I posted on the Vixra preprint server, you can find it there as well. And with that, I'll end my talk. And thank you all for watching this presentation. I hope you learned something out of it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.